cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut. Welcome to the top cut.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into today's episode of the Top Cut Yu-Gi-Oh podcast. My name is Sunny. I'm here with my co-host, Giant Ski Hockey or something. I don't know his name. It's getting harder and harder.
You know, there's only so many things that you can call a large avian individual. Small ground squirrel comes to mind if you want to start getting into opposites. I'm doing well. I've got an entire thing of Ellen's Jus de Pomme, and I'm doing well.
What is that?
It's apple juice. It's just that's what it is in French. Canada, being in Canada, all of our food labels are English and French. So,
you know, even being in the most French part of the United States, we're still not quite.
Well, I mean, there's 2 official languages and all that, but you know how it is.
True. So, I think that even being in the most French part of the United States, as far as we get, is there are some like French architectural influences, and like this some of the schools also teach French, not just Spanish.
That would make sense.
But past that, we really ain't got nothing happening here. The street names, some of them are kind of Frenchy, but most of it's actually Native American, to be honest with you.
I would never have
there's a lot more Native American influence than people might realize. So, but I think that it's time we thank all of our wonderful sponsors. So I'm going to give a huge warm welcome and a thank you to, of course, Steelfox Games and ETB Games. And, of course, we want to thank all of our affiliate sponsors. So a huge thank you to Gem Accessories and, of course, Tier 0 Games. We have discount codes for both of those down below. I believe it's 10% for Gem and 5% for Tier 0. And then, of course, we want to point you to our affiliate links for both TCG Player and Dragon Shield if you want to click before you shop to support the podcast at no extra cost to yourself. Also, of course, we want to direct you to our Teespring store and our Patreon. If you want the extra episode every week, you can go ahead and go there for that. So let's go ahead and get on into today's main topics of discussion, which is money. I like money.
Actually, that's true. That does actually cover all of the topics. That's well done.
Yeah.
Yep.
Specifically, we want to talk today about responsible spending. So our main topic and our main focus today is going to be, we're going to talk a lot about the budget decks of the format. I think that it's really important to understand what your limits are, not just in Yu-Gi-Oh, but in all aspects of a person's like financial journey. And honestly, I've been watching a lot of videos and doing a lot of research, and I'm pretty scared of where our generation is. I see a lot of people building up an enormous amount of debt at an incredibly young age. And so to that end, I think that it's important to let people know and show people that there are other ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Than the most expensive meta deck. So I feel like that's mainly what gets talked about. Is, oh, well, you know, to play Yu-Gi-Oh, you got to be playing Cash Tiro, which is, you know, at one point, you know, $700-800 deck or more. Or, you know, for a while, even like we talked extensively about Vanquish being as expensive as it was. Even though it's cheaper now, it's still $200+ for a cheap deck. All right. So I think that there's a lot, or for a not good deck. I think that there's a lot of other ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Though, and we will get into those. So stick around to hear more of that. But before we get into that, I do want to take a moment to talk a little bit about our content and about our content plan going forward, specifically with our YouTube and other aspects of our content space.
Brand, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Our content path, I guess is what you could call it. So I want to make a lot of different kinds of content with the channel. I've always had this like grand vision of what the podcast would be. And I always visualize it as more than just a podcast. I always visualized it as having a podcast for Spotify and Apple, And on the YouTube side, not just having the actual podcast, but also other various things, other various avenues of content, right? So we tried Deck Debate, which we enjoyed and we haven't revisited, mainly because shortage of funds to pay an editor what that project is really worth. There are other things that we want to do. We want to do lots of shorts. Again, it's an issue of paying an editor what they're worth to do these edits for us. And I know that most people are saying, well, you're too small, you shouldn't have an editor, which you're right. We are too small, we shouldn't have an editor. But we're both incredibly busy individuals. So to that end, the editor lets us put out more content if we can afford to pay them. So that's why the first thing we're going to do when we branch out into new forms of content is to do content that, while it is the thing that I'm probably most passionate about in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh card game outside of actually playing the game.
This guy looks at TCG Player more than anybody I know.
I know the prices.
So
to that point, I've always wanted to do Market Watch content. I've always been very, very adamant in not doing Market Watch content on the podcast. And that's mainly because there is a bare minimum 15 to 20 hour delay in recording to release, right? Even if we record late on a Thursday evening for a Friday episode, you're looking at 8, 9, 10 hour delay. And then by the time the YouTube episode goes out, you're looking at 20 plus. And that's when we end up going late like we did today. Generally, we record with a 48-hour buffer. And that's just not a fast enough turnaround to do Market Watch content. It's really just not. Because Market Watch content needs to be up to date on the market. Some cards might spike really fast and then drop down, and everything happened in less than 12 hours. And, if I'm doing the content 2 days before, I won't hit those fast markets. So I've always not wanted to do it on the podcast, and I want to do it as its own separate thing on the channel. But I've never found a great avenue to do that. Or at least not to do it in a way that was better.
You could say Sonny is looking for a place to share his wisdom. I'm magician.
Yeah. What was that? What magician?
It's a wisdom I'm magician.
Yeah?
It's pendulum.
Nice.
Anyway.
That's why I didn't know it. It's a pendulum card. So I think that we're going to do Market Watch content, but I'm going to do it in an avenue that you haven't seen before, which is YouTube Shorts. So I don't think that there's really any Yu-Gi-Oh YouTubers that are doing Market Watch YouTube Shorts. I know that there are some YouTube Shorts being done within the community, but no Market Watch. So that'll be an opportunity for us to do that. But the Shorts don't actually make any money, especially because not enough people have gone and subscribed to our YouTube channel. There were still only 600 subscribers there, which is not a ton. And you need 1,000 plus 4,000 hours of watch time for monetization. So while it's not going to help much on the watch time, doing lots of shorts will help a ton on the subscriber count. And also the shorts are a way to push people towards the affiliate links, to be quite honest, because the tier 0 affiliate link has made us $200-ish in the last few weeks since we put it in, which is a huge amount, to be quite honest with you. And that's thanks to you guys, right? The people that follow us on Twitter and see when we post on Twitter that they have new products coming available, things like that. The Gem affiliate link hasn't done a ton, and the TCG Player does a little, but really, if we can push more people towards those affiliate links, it's a way to do a bit extra monetization and things like that. And then the plan is from there, once we've monetized enough through the affiliate links, the plan is to build a PC and start doing regular streaming. And then, so now that we've got this income flow between, hopefully by that time, the channel's at 1,000 plus subscribers, we're monetized, we're doing, affiliate branding, we're doing streaming. And by the time all those things come together, we can pay an editor what they're really worth, because I'm not going to just go out underpaying editors for, their time. I mean, they're worth more than however much, you've seen other people paying, right? Because, an editor is worth $30 an hour to edit a video. So I think that once you combine those things with wanting to do the best content possible rather than just the podcast, I think that this is going to be a good plan of action going forward to make that happen.
Yep, and Sunny and I have always been very like radical transparency. A lot of the Market Watch stuff idea came pretty much solely from Sunny, and he's more of a market guy than I am. I have pretty much never been a market watcher. I keep an eye on like stuff like any Yu-Gi-Oh player does, but he's got like a super wider breadth of knowledge. So I may pop on every once in a while if I've got something to say, but this is definitely Sunny's area of expertise, and with the affiliate links and stuff, again, just that radical transparency. Like, yeah, it's a way to push. Like you see. House of Champs always got the sponsors up. Hakuna Matata, when he's talking about tech cards, he's like, if you'd like any of these tech cards, you can use my code here. And that's, everybody's there to do it. We'd appreciate it if you use ours, but helping any creator is good. Yeah, eventually the goal is to help both the channel do better and also to branch out into other types of content. We're still here. We're still talking for some number of hours a night. That's still happening.
And we had considered even cutting back on the podcast to 1 episode a week. But to be honest with you, the podcast itself has always kind of been my baby. It's always the thing that I wanted to push the most because it was what started this whole journey. And I don't want to let I don't want to forget where I came from in the pursuit of new things, right?
Mm-hmm. Could be in the future, but for now we're here until something changes.
Until the inevitable heat death of the universe. So, as far as the transparency thing, I'm glad you brought that up, because I know that some people might hear me say like exact numbers, what we're making, things like that. Like, that's the reason that I have the Patreon set, to show you exactly not only how many patrons we have, but also exactly how much money we make a month. Like, if you just click on our Patreon, you can see exactly what we bring in a month on Patreon. And that's not me, trying to like show off what we make, because it's not enough to show off. It's like $100.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, it like barely covers our expenses. But I think that it is important to note that it is also not enough to like do more with. But I've seen the examples set by, for example, MBT is pretty forthright with his Patreon. His Patreon is also set to the same way. That was my inspiration for that. I think that John Moore over at House of Champs is pretty transparent, even on his streams and stuff like that, with his situation, and that he makes all of his money from affiliate links. So I just think that it's really important to have that transparency, to understand that we don't make money really from like sponsorships. We only make money if we sell something. So if we say use our affiliate link, or if we say whatever, this brand this brand that, it's not like a recurring thing that's going to last forever. So it's important to promote the things that we feel like are worth promoting.
Yep.
And then be as transparent as possible, so you know why and what we stand to gain from it. Because, I don't know, I just feel like it's better for everyone if you just understand exactly, what the impact is on all sides. I don't know.
Yep. And importantly, we'd probably be doing this whether it's like $0 on the Patreon or $100 on the Patreon, or whether there's a month in tier 0 where there's nothing in there and a month where there's some extra, right?
Yeah.
We do this. If we didn't enjoy making stuff, we would not be here. So,
and that enjoyment of making stuff is what's wanting us to make more stuff.
Yep.
So,
speaking of,
and the last thing I wanted to say.
Okay.
I want to do one last quick thing.
Mm-hmm.
Please. This episode at the end of the day is about financial responsibility. That's going to be the main focus of the rest of the episode for the next 45 minutes. So please, do not spend anything on those affiliate links that you cannot afford to spend. Don't worry about us. Worry about yourself first. Make sure that things are all good for you. before going out and spending money on things, because we don't want you to say, oh yeah, but I can help the guys out or whatever, and go and spend $200 on an affiliate link.
Nope.
When you only have $150 in your bank account, right? Or you have a bill that's coming up, like rent or something. Like make sure that you have your situation handled the way it needs to be before going out and spending a bunch of money on other things. So I don't want you to feel like pressure to, support our hobby.
Fair enough. And I guess
to that end, speaking of responsible spending,
we're going to talk about budget decks.
Yeah.
What's interesting, I think, maybe even before we get into this conversation, is that at a top level, it's probably less expensive than it's been in a little while. Like, if you look at a lot of lists for Unchained, Kashtira, the Infernoble, Pearly, like, lists are kind of capping out at around $550, which in the grand scheme of Yu-Gi-Oh, to have a lot of decks be available at that price point is pretty wild. But that's still an insane amount of money.
Yeah,
still
even
a lot.
Especially lately, it's like kind of come into my picture, into my view of how much money we have invested in this game and how much money we spend, and that you can really be competitive in this game for a lot less. And I think our first deck here is the absolute picture of really cheap and really competitive.
Yep. So we got a couple of tiers built out here, and then there are a couple of discussion points to go through afterwards. So we've got some decks under $50, some decks you can build under $100, and then some decks you can build under $200. If you feel like you want to push yourself into that range, it again depends on what's available to you. And important to note is that a lot of these lists exclude some important staples. I think the big ones that we discussed were Pot of Prosperity and Baron de Fleur, specifically kind of screw up the price for a lot of decks that otherwise would be very cheap. Personally, I think those two cards specifically, so Pot of Prosperity and Baron de Fleur, and even Triple Tactics Talent, for example, are in the Rarity Collection that is coming in November. So unless you want to play a specific deck for a specific event happening between now and the Rarity Collection, do not buy those cards. Because they are getting prints in 6 different rarities. Both the new prints
7
and the old prints will be cheaper. I think it's just 6. Because it should 7. Isn't it Collector, Ulti, Platinum, Secret Ultra Super?
Quarter Century.
No, you are right.
Yep, you're getting 79 cards and 7 different rarities each. So imagine essentially that Pot of Prosperity currently has 2 printings that are legal. And you're going to have at least one more coming with the Rarity Collection. Because you have the original Secret, and then you have the Megatin reprint. Technically, there's a Starlight Rare, but we're not going to count. Even count the Starlight Rare, whatever, it doesn't matter. Count the Starlight Rare. So you have three legal printing rarities, whatever. And then the Pot Collection is coming out soon. Those are already retailing at obscene amounts of money because it's not only competitive, it's also a collector's card. And the only good card in the thing that's going to see real play.
Well, I mean, hey, now come on. Pot of Duality is played in a couple decks.
I mean, Extrav is played in as much or more than Duality.
Yeah, that's
right.
True.
Pot of Greed probably sees more play than Duality, though. Right?
If we're talking retro formats,
yeah,
you're not wrong.
But I think the important thing to note here is that even with those printings, Prosperity is still a $30+ card. Okay, now we're going to nearly over double the amount of ways that you can get this card. And there's 2 guaranteed supers in every single pack. The supers are not going to be changed out for other rarities. So some of the individual rarities like Ultimate Rare and even Quarter Century or whatever, collectors might be $30, but the regular supers are probably going to be $5 or $6.
Yep.
So the Platinum Secret Rares might be less than that.
Point is, unless you're going to indie, don't buy these cards. It's exactly. Or maybe if you have a really big regional and you want to play something specific you've been brewing up. For example,
that said, Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for example, I own copies of Thrust and Prosperity because I had decks that I wanted to possibly play for YCS Vancouver. If I was not going to YCS Vancouver, I would have sold those already. Because if you don't play enough in person to justify their use, it's just not worth the money.
Correct. Also, I'll say cards like Thrust, while they're really good, if you're not playing anything above locals for like the next 6 months, you just don't need
Wouldn't do it. No. It's I think I had 3 major events that I wanted them for, and so that's why I've got them.
I'm so sorry for anybody hearing all of my sniffling, by the way. I have been dealing with lots of allergy issues where it's Louisiana.
We'll make it through. The one other thing, so with Thrust specifically, it's like it sucks because it's probably one of the best 3 like non-engine cards in the game. I think if you want a video to watch on non-engine cards, even to like think about them price-wise, Jesse Cotton just released an hour-long video talking about what he thinks about all of the non-engine cards in the game that are like realistically playable.
Yep.
And it's
insane.
Not only is it a treasure trove of knowledge, but it's a great place to look and be like, hey, these are some less expensive cards that are good into the metagame that I can play. Like now, for example, Book of Eclipse, Jesse seems to think it's the best card in the game. I think it's pretty darn close. And the rare print from Genesis Impact is probably like less than $1. It's probably like pennies.
Yeah.
So
it's really cheap.
The options definitely exist. And now it sucks because Thrust is also one of those cards, and it's like it's $80. So
yeah, and it's not getting any cheaper either.
Yeah, but I guess that leads us into deck number 1. This deck you can build at any price point, probably between the $50 and $200 range. But with
the Eclipse rares, for those wondering, are 5 cents from Tactical Masters.
Yeah, so 15 cents for a playset of the best card in the game right now seems legit.
Yeah.
And if you decide you want a rarity bump, the ultras are really inexpensive too.
Yes.
As are the secrets, actually. They're not that crazy. The Turbo Pack Supers.
The card's just cheap.
Yeah, the Turbo Pack Supers cap out at like 5.
Like when Droll and Lockbird
Astral
sees
Pack.
high levels of play, like when Droll and Lockbird sees really high levels of play, it's like a $4 or $5 rare. And you're looking at 1/100th of that, literally.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the most competitive budget deck, 2 of it topped YCS Vancouver. I'm mixing up the Canadian YCSs. But those decks were playing more expensive cards, but Fluwandereeze is probably the best bang for your buck deck in that format, and you can build it probably for under $50. The entire core, aside from Advent, was reprinted in last year's tins. Those cards are pennies, and the Advent just got reprinted in these tins, and I think it's 50 cents a copy. So your whole core is like $5.
Not to mention, the ones reprinted in the tins were the up rarities. A lot of the deck was already commons and supers in the original set.
Yep, exactly true.
Even original M-Pens are like $2 or something, like outrageous.
100% correct. Dimension Shifter, a very powerful card you have access to, was common, I believe, in the Crystal Beast structure deck, and it has a couple of other low rarity reprints.
Yep.
So
it has an ultra printing in last year's tins. It's a really nice printing, and I think it's like $2. And also, it's a side deck card.
Yep. So the staples you can play are relatively cheap. The big money sink there is Pot of Prosperity, but you have other consistency options. Pot of Duality is in most of these lists. You just max out on that, as well as Jack in the Hand as a consistency tool.
Could also play Extravagances at about $1.50 a piece.
Yep, Extravagance is also an option. So you definitely have choices for your draw power. Dark Ruler has common printings now, so a lot of flu lists are playing Dark Ruler. If you want a good list to model off of as well, another consistency piece is you can play the Simorgh of Perfection engine. Those cards are all commons, as is Elbor's, which is the field spell you would play with it. And those cards also can like be a consistency piece for not very much money. So under $50, you can absolutely make it so that you can play well at your locals.
Yep. And here in this situation, your non-engine will have to be cards like, which you should be playing Book of Moon in that deck anyway, but your non-engine will be cards like Book of Moon, cards like Book of Eclipse, things like that, which can generate powerful swings in game state for not generating a lot of debt.
Yep.
So,
and if you already have staples, Flu is like the cheapest core you can pick up to like.
Yeah.
Even like honestly, if you were going to go to a regional, and you didn't want to drop money on Prosperity, Flu Unders is probably the deck you should play.
Yeah. I'll talk a little bit about the next deck, and you can talk a little bit about Dynamorphia, because I don't know enough about Dynamorphia.
Mm-hmm.
But I love mentioning Sword Soul as a budget deck. Not just because it's like my favorite deck, or the deck that I've been playing for a year and a half,
but also because it is.
Now. But also, yes. But also, it's legitimately, if you don't want to play Flu, I'm just going to be honest. I think Sword Soul, you can build the entire deck for, excluding your non-engine, for under $50. Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous is like about $1. Moyes are about $4. That's your most expensive engine card. So you're looking at $12 for Moyes, $3 for Ecclesias. That's $15. Then Tayas are pennies, Longyans are pennies. So you're looking at, say, $16 for if you include all those.
Yeah, you can load up on the Tenny part of the engine
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then even like Heavenly Dragon Circle, it was a common in its original print, right? Most of the tennies were either commons or rares, or all of the tennies got reprinted as ultras and Ghosts from the Past 2.
Yeah, I think actually this is interesting to note, is that I think if you're playing on a budget, you can also get a little bit greedy with your engine and have that be like your compensation for not having the expensive non-engine cards. Vessel for the Dragon Cycle is an all-gas card that you can play that isn't expensive and can replace some non-engine space. And I think there are a lot of... to be honest,
the non-engine... Like, your engine is so cheap. And I'm just... Like, realistically, the only non-engine card that I would even play in... hold on, wait. Let me just go to TCG Player so I'm not giving bad information. The only non-engine card that I would play right now in that deck would be like Imperm, which is like a $6 card. If the rest of your deck is that cheap, you could honestly almost afford the Imperms.
If you have Imperm, I honestly wouldn't buy it. I don't think it's very good this format. Like, I'm being real, for $18.
Well, I see what you say. I see what you're saying. I think it's only... You have to play it in Sword Soul, because you can beat the entire Unchained board except for Caesar.
I see.
You have to have a way to play into Caesar specifically. So you need to have Imperm, because if you don't have Imperm, then you have to have Vishuddha plus like an Adhara or something.
Forbidden Chalice?
Like you have to have like... Yeah, like Chalice would also... Actually, honestly, yeah, Chalice. If you don't already have Book of Moon, Chalice might actually be the play there, because...
3 Book of Moon, 3 Book of Eclipse, 3 Chalice.
Literally, yes. Yeah. And then you just don't play Baron. But you can get the entire deck with those cards you just mentioned for like $20 is not an exaggeration. $20 to $25. Which means at that point, Baron, I think, is $40. So you could honestly almost play this deck with Baron under $50. Actually.
Yeah, maybe a stretch, but under 100 you could probably do it.
No, I bet I could add that whole deck to my cart right now with Baron. Barons are $45. I think I could add that entire deck with Baron into my cart for under $70. That's not an exaggeration.
That's not bad. And if you wait until November, you could play that whole deck for like $20.
Yeah, I'm just gonna... Yeah, I wouldn't buy Baron right now. I wouldn't do that. But but the thing is it play like... Yeah, Baxia and stuff like just plays into the deck really well. Anyway, there's one or two more that I think are worth talking about. Let's do Dynamorphia.
Yeah, I'll do maybe just a little quick... well, actually, we'll probably talk about Runic in the under 100 section, because the builds of that you can play are more competitive in that range. Dynamorphia has topped YCSs and is a deck that people are very unprepared for right now. People are playing Storm and Duster, but mostly as thrust targets. The deck has a lot more ways to play around them now, and it's also a deck that is like kind of fine under Shifter, doesn't care much about a lot of the meta, and the entire core just got reprinted in the Megatins, and it is dirt cheap. Prosperity is like, again, a card that you could play in the deck, but you can probably build Dynamorphia for $15 now. Like your non-engine is even not expensive because it's like a bunch of normal trap cards that nobody plays. So like Ferret Flames is pennies. All of the Dynamorphia trap cards are pennies. The Domain and Frenzy are now less than $1. All of your monsters are cheap. Misk has like 12 billion reprints. Fossil Dig is a consistency piece you can max out on that has 1 billion reprints. The extra deck is just a bunch of copies of your Dynamorphia cards, and then punishment targets if you want to play those. And your side can be like the most expensive card you'd consider siding is Lava Golem, right?
Yeah.
But you don't have to play Golem. It can be Kaijus. There are tons of options. So Dynamorphia as a cheap deck, very good to play. One thing that I will say is that it kind of sucks that the cheapest decks in the game are like very stun control strategies. If you don't like that play style, it gets more expensive.
Yes, I would agree. I think the mid-rangey style has a lot more that it can do. But some honorable mentions on our $50 list include Striker, which is also kind of a control strat, but you can do a little bit more with Striker than you used to be able to do, especially with like Linkage and Azalea out. Azalea is a little bit expensive, but realistically, the whole deck is really not that bad for Striker. Moving on to the under $100 category, though, I think that the best deck in this category, for me, is probably Scareclaw. I think Scareclaw is a really, really interesting deck. I remember seeing Triff pilot this deck at YCS Niagara to first place at the Giant card. In fact, he might have done multiple Giant cards. He went on a tear. He went like 14-0 in side events with this deck. And granted, he was playing it a little bit like differently with like a tier package or something like that. But that deck was absolute gas. And I really do believe that if you pilot this deck well, this deck has a way higher ceiling than people might realize. And overall, I think the most expensive card is maybe Tryhard.
Tryhard got
if I'm wrong there.
Tryhard's in the tins.
Lightheart?
Lightheart's in the tins.
Never mind. This deck, why is this deck under 50?
Well, I think so. The expensive part of the deck, even with the tin reprint, is probably Vsauce Starfrost.
Okay.
But even the tin Vsauces are not that expensive now, right? So I think like you could do under 50. Importantly, the build of the deck that I think probably is the most bang for your buck is the Adventure Scareclaw deck. This deck does not care about the effect of its normal summon because its normal summon is a guy that like gives Lightheart an effect. Or a Tryhard an effect, rather. Scareclaw has access to Twin Saw, which is a really strong like trap card disruption. And Scareclaw has also topped a bunch of regionals.
Vsauce is not the reason that deck costs anything. Vsauce is like under $1.
Oh, really? I didn't realize it was that cheap. And
the tin one.
Tin one. Yeah, Reichphobia is also in the tins. So, maybe you can.
Vsauce is right at $1.
Maybe you can play this for under 50.
Adventure deck.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. This entire deck is in the tins, pretty much outside of the engine. You could probably play it for under $50.
Yeah, and then again, this is another deck where if you have a Baron, then cool. If not, meh. Tryhard's a big dingus, and Wandering Griffin Rider does a pretty good impression of Baron.
Yeah.
Or there are some pure lists playing a lot of non-engine. Scareclaw is also a deck that's pretty good going second. So, yeah, definitely consider it.
Sure.
Next one up is another deck that got a lot of reprints in the tins, and that is Runic for Higher Sprite. The Runic engine is criminally cheap for how strong it is. I think tips are at most $2.50, and Runic fountains are under $1.
$2.25.
And the rest of the spells are pennies, especially if you... And you can get the ultras for not very much, but if you want to get like really cheap, you can go get the old
The
prints.
Runic tip ultras are $5. The secrets are $2.25.
Yep, to get yourself some secrets. The Fur Hire engine is incredibly cheap, especially because it's fallen out of the meta a little bit. You can pick up a lot of those pieces for not very much money. The Sprite cards, if you decide to play that engine, are a bit of extra investment, but because the rest of them are so cheap, it's pretty easy to pick those up. And specifically in the Runic for Hire build, you're only really playing one of each of the cards anyway. You're only playing one blue, one jet, one carrot, one red, and then one starter. And then if you really want to, you can play the Smashers. But you're not... those builds of the deck don't play a very heavy Sprite engine. Gigantic is also very cheap, so really you're not doing too much.
I think it's also worth mentioning that one of the cool things I think about the Runic for Hire Sprite deck, and any Sprite deck in particular, is that your only worry with the deck is Sprite getting hit on the ban list, which I don't know that happens due to its falling out of favor in the format. I think at this point, blue getting hit would be excessive, but one of the coolest things about this deck is that even if you pick up the Runic for Hire Sprite engine, you'll always have the Runic and the For Hire engines, but the Sprite engine, you can also pick up a lot of the Melfi cards very, very cheap and play like a Sprite For Hire Melfi thing.
Yep. Easy to... It is an engine that is easy to move across different decks, like Gigantic into Ibli is something that like basically any deck in the game that sniffs at level 2 monsters can do. It gives you access to rituals if you want to play Gishki, and the Runic stuff gives you access to a ton of decks, including another deck on this list actually, that is capable of doing well at regionals and YCSs. Like the Runic engine can be played in a lot of stuff. Runic Chimera is a thing. That version of the deck is more expensive, but it's a thing you can do. Runic Volcanic is a thing if you have those cards, and the Volcanic stuff's not that expensive.
The Volcanic stuff has gotten really cheap.
Yep, because really the only thing carrying that set is the Salamangreat of Fire, right? Everything else is pretty cheap.
Oh, no, nothing's carrying
it. Nothing is carrying it. That's true.
No, it will be worse than Duelist of the Deep, or as bad at the very least. Like, Duelist of the Deep, do you realize how much those are selling for on TCG Player right now?
It's like $20 a box, isn't it? It's really low.
18. A box.
Man.
And the Fire set will be there by this time next year. It will be $25 a box.
18 a box and Fish Zone are still $10. SMH my head.
Oh, by the way, Salamangreat should be in the under $50 category. We didn't even think about it.
I would say Salamangreat probably under 100 because you need access code.
Okay, even then, I
but
mean, under $100.
Salamangreat.
The whole
definitely.
deck got reprinted in the Fire set.
Yeah, well, so Salamangreat of Fire is like $18, wasn't it?
Is it really?
Isn't it expensive now? I thought I looked at it just recently.
I mean, I'm open to being wrong about this.
Yeah, I believe it's over 10 at least. Like, I don't know what it looks like US. I could have been looking at Canada numbers, which are not real.
It is $18.
Okay.
Never mind. Sunny misinformation counter has gone back to 1.
Market Watch channel,
wow.
everybody.
But no. I was right about the boxes. They're already $20.
Yeah, exactly. So
for the Fire set,
under 200 you could do Salad, but note that it would be an investment of sorts.
Wow, $20.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So the other, it won a regional one time, and suddenly the deck is a thing. So the other deck under $100 that I want to talk about is Plunder Patrol. Plunder has multiple regional tops. It actually won a regional as a Plunder Patrol Labyrinth deck, and it also has a couple of second place finishes and a couple of top 8s. Most of the builds are either Adventure Plunder or Runic Plunder. Both of which are very cheap now that the Adventure engine has also 10 reprints, as are the Runics. I think Blackbeard is probably your most expensive card, and you do need 3 of it, but then the rest of your engine is very cheap. And then it's just whatever non-engine you want to play. Bahamut Shark and
then Blackbeard's not that bad.
Yeah, Bahamut Shark and Toad are cheaper than they've ever been. Now that Sprite is not playing Toad, all of the reprint copies have dropped down to like $1. Bahamut Shark has the rare reprint from Duels of the Deep, so that's like 15 cents. So a lot of your extra deck is just criminally inexpensive. Definitely consider Plunder, and Plunder, importantly, is also a very fun deck. It is a deck that has staying power over the course of a couple of years because it fits a lot of non-engine, and the engine is also very recursive. So If you want a rogue deck that is cheap that you can play for probably the next couple of years reasonably, Plunder is a good pickup.
Also, there is another deck on here. I don't know why it's on here, but it is on here, and that is Fluffle, because I don't see Fluffle as a under $100 deck. I'm just gonna be honest.
I'm spreading a little bit of
I
propaganda. It's not anymore. Rage and Yama are too expensive. You can't play it for under 100.
Not only is Rage and Yama too expensive for the Unchained Fluffle version, I think that there's also a case to be made for you either have to play. You probably really should be playing Access Code on top of that.
I will say
even Thrust. You can get away without both, but like
I will say you can get away without Access Code. Ease's 9th place list at the regional he played at Niagara Falls was not playing Access Code because he does not own one.
Gotcha.
So it is possible to do well. I put it on here mainly just to spread the propaganda, but no, if you are playing the best version of the deck, even without Thrust or Access Code, it's probably more than 100, just because Rage and Yama are getting expensive now. So
yes,
that price point is definitely outdated.
That said, you should definitely check out Fluffle.
And if you keep an eye on my channel at the end of the week, there may be a 4-hour video for you to watch if you are interested in learning how to play.
That's a heck of a video. That's a lot of time spent recording. That's just a good value. You should watch it. Everybody should watch it.
I've been in the tank. If you are interested in learning how to play Unfluffed for the next month before AGOV releases and upends everything we know, then it will be there for you.
Unfluffed. I love that.
It was Unstuffed, but then we came up with Unfluffed, and I think Unfluffed is much better.
Like that.
Anyway, would you like to lead us into $200?
Yeah. So there's another category here. We were deciding between under 150 and under 200. We went with under 200, although most of these can also be done for under 150. Mm-hmm. For example, Fluonderies with Prosperities is under 200, but it's definitely under 150. Prosperities at $30 a piece, like 31 a piece. You might be able to pull this off right at 100. Yeah, because the entire engine for Flu is that cheap. Like, but your non-engine is going to be $6 or $7.
If you,
so it's going to be right around 100.
Yeah, if you want to build the cheapest deck possible that can top a YCS, Fluonderies. Again, 2 of it topped Vancouver, and seriously, importantly, the deck is way better now. If Unchained is the best deck in the format, Fluonderies eats Unchained for breakfast. Which is crazy. Especially going second into Unchained, Fluonderies is very strong because the only interactions that really matter, it totally blanks Caesar, and it plays under Griffin because Griffin only affects special summon monsters. Right. It plays under Rage because Rage can only target a special summon monster your opponent controls during the main phase. So the only interactions you're worried about are specifically the Rage pop and the Abominable pop coming from the deck. If you know you're going to an event where there's going to be a lot of Unchained and you have $200, Flu.
Yeah, for sure. I think that unfortunately, there's a wonderful case for Flu being just the best anti-meta pick of this format, in like a good way for once. I've never
imagine the day
so much for people. I know. I never thought I'd see the day where I was advocating for people playing Flu to the extent that I have on this podcast, but it really is like that good of a budget deck right now, especially considering for like 100 to 120 you can get the whole deck with Prosperities. Like, you keep in mind, in a lot of decks, your extra deck is like the most expensive thing. Like for Dragon Link, that's the reason Dragon Link is not on any of these lists at the moment. It's not even because Druid Worm is like $8-10. It's not because Magnamut is $4 to $5 or Lubellians are $6, $7, or $8. We could do that whole deck under 200 easy. But the problem is the extra deck, right? Like Chaos Angel's like what, $70 now? You know,
Chaos
even
Angel,
Borload Savage is still 15.
Borload Savage still 10 to 15. Baron de Fleur is in that extra deck. Dispatter is still $10.
Exactly. So when you have all these things that you can just eliminate with Flu, I mean, even if you want to play like Dogmatica Punishment and you want to play Intises and Garuras, you can get all of that
Or,
in this under $200 mark, especially considering Garuro is in the tins.
Honestly, if you wanted to ball out, you could get a Starlight Bucephalus for $40 and still come in under 120.
Yes.
Like,
Not under 120, under 2 though.
no, under 120. The Bucephalus Starlight is 40.
Not with prosperities.
Oh, not with prosperity, you're right. But point being, like, and you don't even have to play those cards. My good friend, Celeste Caitlin, there's a deck profile on my channel of her top 8 Cardiff regional deck profile of Fluanderies, and the extra deck was just a Rika Sun Avalon extra deck. It literally...
By the way, if anybody has a Bucephalus that they want to trade for 40, I'll do it. Okay. I'd like to have one of those.
Yeah. So
Caitlin was playing the Rika Sun Avalon extra deck, you said, in Flu?
In Flu, all 15 of the cards were Rika Sun Avalon. So you can, like, realistically, if you want to be, like, exact about it, you would play Assembled Nightingale and a Zeus package. But Zeus is expensive, and honestly, it's not going to come up. So,
can still do it under 200, though.
You could, yeah. You could definitely do that. Speaking... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, speaking of Rika, let's talk about Rika.
Yeah, so this is a deck that I put in, I thought to put in under 200 because there are some cards that are on the expensive side. Specifically, I believe it's Snowdrop is probably $10,
Yeah.
but you don't play 3 of it.
Actually, no. I think Snowdrop cut a reprint.
Did it? I have to pull up because one of the names is expensive.
Snowdrop didn't get a reprint. Snowdrop is still
that's
$11.
And then, but Glamour is not as expensive as it was. Glamour is down to $3 to $4 a playset, and then the rest of the deck, I think Teardrop, the Xyz, is probably $250.
No, not a playset, a piece.
Oh, a piece. Sorry, my bad. Yeah, so a piece.
Glamours are $4 each.
So your playset of Glamours, and then your
Petal.
Those Petal's like $1, isn't it?
The supers are $4. Is there a different printing?
There is a different printing.
Oh, I see. They're a penny. My bad.
Yeah. They're nothing.
How is Petal in Maze of Memories, but Snowdrop and Glamour?
I could not tell you. That was, I remember we were asking that when the set came out. Concon's also a super. So like probably the Rika core and the Sun Avalon core isn't running you that much. It's probably like between all the cards, maybe $30, $35. And then your extra deck, Jasmine is on the expensive side, but it's been dropping very heavily recently due to ban list speculation. And honestly, they would never ban that card. They probably just limit it if it gets hit.
Also, if it gets hit,
I was going to say Bengal Lancer also is incredibly cheap. I believe it even has a reprint. And then it's just filling out your non-engine space. The Therion package also got...
are like, I was about to say, Reguluses got reprinted in the tins. That's what I was going to say earlier. It's like a $6 card now, or less.
So Lily Borea, which is probably even more important than the Regulus, is now under $1. And as is the Therion Field Spell. Anything else you'd play, Strenna is also not expensive anymore. So Rika is importantly, it's a difficult deck, but you could build a version of it for under 100, and if you wanted to splurge on non-engine, 200 is probably where you'd end up.
I just considered something. There's a deck that's not on this under 200 list that's definitely under $200 now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Kashtira.
Okay, but
the only reason Kashtira is not under like $70 is because of prosperity. Fenrir's are $8.
Okay. The reason I didn't include it when we were drafting this list is because I really cannot recommend anyone buy it before the ban list.
Yeah, it's a terrible investment.
But you are right that if you want to play without prosperities, it is cheap.
Okay. If you already bought prosperities for something else and you already happen to have prosperities and you are in a position to where you would just like to have a deck to play that would be competitive until we get a potential ban list, because I think a ban list is going to destroy this deck.
Monday.
I think that it wouldn't be a terrible investment, because even at the end of the day, Fenrir alone is probably going to retain value. I don't see them doing anything to Fenrir except for maybe a semi. I don't see them limiting Fenrir. I think if you ban Birth or ban a Rise Heart, the deck is like people aren't going to play it anymore. And so I think that if people aren't playing the deck anymore, they don't need to hit Fenrir, and that still gives them a reason to sell Fenrirs in the tins and stuff. So what I'm saying is, like, even if the deck gets hit, you can still justify the purchase of it because Fenrir is the most expensive card by a very wide margin. After Fenrir, which is again $8, I don't think there's a single card over like $1 or maybe $2.
I don't know what planet is at because planet is not in the tins.
Planet's not in the tins? Planet's... is Theosis in the tins?
Theosis is not in the tins. None of the Photon Hypernova cards are. So a Rise Heart is not expensive, but I don't know what planet and Theosis are at. And you need three of those cards for sure.
Oh, and Tierluin's Kashtira is also...
I don't even think... I guess if you choose to not play Prosp, you would play Tier Cash for sure. I don't think a lot of the lists are on Tier Cash.
So
I think most of them are on Scare
Theosis
Cash.
is 8. A Rise Heart is 5.
How much is Planet?
I don't...
Pressured Planet.
Oh, I guess I would have to search. Is it Primitive Planet?
Pressured
or
Planet.
Primeval?
Pressured.
Pressured.
Primitive is Reichphobia.
Never mind. You might be able to do under 200. These are $22 a piece. Don't buy this deck. Even if you have disposable income, don't buy this deck. I cannot in good faith justify.
Do not do it.
Even with our affiliate link, don't buy this deck.
Do not do it.
Yeah, not even with our affiliate link. Don't buy this deck. I forgot about the planets being $22 a piece.
So
maybe just Fenrirs. Fenrirs would be fine.
Yeah. Next up is a deck that is on the more expensive side of this list, but is also very competitive for the price, and that is Labyrinth.
Yeah.
The expensive card in this deck, almost all of the deck got reprinted in the tins or in some other sets. I think Maze of Memories had a couple cards randomly.
Yes. No. Battles of Legend, Monstrous Revenge.
That is a Legend. That's the one. Yeah. The one card that didn't see a reprint is Big Welcome, and those are sitting at around $18 to $20. So you are paying between $50 and $60 for a playset of that card.
Yes.
But then the rest of your core is very, very cheap, and your non-engine is a bunch of normal traps.
Yeah. Are all of the Unchained cards fiends?
Yes. Importantly...
Wait. Is IDP insane versus this deck?
It's complicated. It's good.
So, like, kind of, but not really.
Yeah. I've seen some of them have been playing IDP again. You can also play Unchained Labyrinth if you have because you can just do.
Yeah, that is just a thing you could do.
Yep, that is actually the version of the deck that topped. What's the thing? Topped Vancouver. But you don't need it. And again, Rage is kind of expensive, as is Yama, so you can definitely not do that. The other card that you wouldn't play, Labyrinth plays a lot of Chaos Angel. And so you definitely would just not play any of those. Muckracker got a reprint in the tins, so you can now do the Muckracker lines a lot easier. And the furniture build of the deck is criminally cheap for what it is.
Yes,
those cards are very inexpensive, and they didn't get rarity bumps in the tins, so they're like pennies, literal pennies. Both of the big ladies have reprints, as does Welcome Labyrinth. So if you want to play that deck, then you could definitely do it. You could probably make it work under 100, but if you wanted to splurge a little bit for a more competitive event between 150 and 200, you can play competitive Labyrinth.
Yeah, for sure. So with that said, we might have a couple of honorable mentions here if you want to hit a few things. I think that personally, in the spirit of Caleb, I'm going to mention Madolche. It's reasonably cheap, especially now that the Queen Tiara Masu has been reprinted.
There is one exception.
Never mind. Promenade's still $20.
Yep. I love Konami. They're so good. Don't you just love when this happens? When they're just like,
listen,
oops, we forgot.
I wanted to end this episode honestly praising Konami. Because, no, think about it. 2 years ago, or about this, yeah, about like January of last year, I priced my Sword Soul deck. And it was like $1,500, right?
Yep.
Because of Moyes being expensive, sure. Chixiaos, sure. Ecclesias, sure. But like 2/3 of the value of my Sword Soul deck came from Ash Blossoms and Imperms and Drolls. I mean, at the time, Super Drolls were like $20,
Yep.
right? My Secret Ash Blossoms were like $130.
Mm-hmm.
And so much of the value just came from staples. And now Ash Blossoms, $1, maybe 2 or 3
No,
at most.
they're more expensive than that.
Really?
Go look up
with
Ash.
multiple structured at commons.
Go look up Ash Blossom.
With
Go look it up.
7 new rarities coming in 2 months.
Go look it up. Go look it up. Go look it up.
No shot.
Just look up Ash Blossom.
Okay. Even so,
Look up
I
Ash
remember
Blossom.
2 years ago, the very cheapest copy of Ash Blossom was $30 or
Yes,
$25
it's better than
for a common.
It's better than that for sure. Ash right now, I think at minimum is like 8 to 10.
No shot. Oh, people, what are we doing? Here's one for $250. The Trap Trick structures are less than $3. So are the Crystal Beast structures. They're $3. And the Soul Burner commons are $3. All the commons are like $3. But okay, even so, $3 is still a lot better than.
It's $3 is better than I thought it was.
25.
To be honest, I totally forgot about the Trap Trick structure deck reprint.
I said multiple recent structure reprints. Yeah. I mean, it's a very reasonably priced card.
Still the most expensive card in all the structures. Which is wild.
Yeah, probably.
Except the Trap Trick structure deck evenly might be more expensive. But anyway.
Probably not.
The
Even evenly was like a $15 card for the longest time.
I think with a few notable exceptions in deck cores too, Vanquish Soul and Kashtira, and for a time Dragon Link actually, because of the Bestial Rebellion. But
yes,
deck cores have done a good job of not getting too crazy, or there at least being a window of opportunity where they're cheap. The branded Chimera deck had probably a 3-week window where it was not expensive at all. Before people started experimenting with it, right?
Yeah. I picked up all of mine. I picked up the entire deck for $40, except I'm missing one of my 2 chimeras, Guardian Chimeras.
Right.
So I get the entire deck, including one of my 2 Guardian Chimeras for $40. I'm missing 1 Guardian Chimera and 1 Magnum the Reliever, which is nothing.
Yeah.
But now that 1 Guardian Chimera is $40 to $50. So
yep. I have
all prosperities. So.
I have 2 quick honorable mentions. The first one for under 200 is Gold Pride Punk. That deck can be played without Baron de Fleur. Psychic and Punisher also just got a reprint in the tins. The Punk engine is very cheap. It's been reprinted into the ground. As is the Gold Pride stuff. Most of the core is not very expensive. So if you want like a combo-ish deck to play, Punk Gold Pride is good. Exosister is a deck that I forgot to put on here that you can definitely build under $100. Magnifica is expensive now because it didn't get a reprint in the tins, which is unbelievable. So that card is at 16 to 17, but you don't need 3 of it, and the rest of the deck is now pennies. The original prints and the tin reprints make the core of that deck incredibly cheap. It also plays Shifter. The extra deck is also just a bunch of Exosister cards, so you don't have to shell out for any expensive extra deck cards. So Exosister is something to keep in the back of your mind as well.
I would like to say we do give Konami a lot of issues for the price point of Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is a very expensive card game to play, especially when you compare it to something like Pokemon. That said, I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is as bad now as it has been in the past. I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now, if you're smart about how you spend your money, is an extremely affordable game, especially compared to something like Magic. I'm not saying that you cannot play Magic cheaply. I'm saying that you cannot play like high-level competitive Magic cheaply.
I think that is something interesting to touch on, is why Yu-Gi-Oh! Has the perception it does, and it's partially because there's only one format, right? Like, there are probably a lot of Edison decks you could play for basically no money at all.
Yeah, not anymore.
Oh, I guess now that the format is popular and a bunch of stuff needs reprints really badly.
Yeah, so that's kind of the issue, is that the format's popularity has priced people out of it.
Love that.
Because so many of the cards haven't seen reprints in a decade.
Big fan big fan of Arc Lord Christia. How much does that card cost now?
$3, $4.
You might want to go look that up.
No shot. I was gonna say Royal Oppressions are like
secrets
$10.
are
Trap
like,
Dust Shoots are $10.
I saw somebody talking about it. There might be.
Oh, the secrets. Yeah, the secrets are insane. The secrets are like $400.
Yeah.
But like you can get the supers for $1.50.
Oh, okay.
And the commons for $1.50. Yeah.
I don't know.
The
about
secrets
the extra
are like
reprints.
the secret first eds are outrageous. But
Yeah.
I mean, even cards like Substitute is like $25.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That should have been in like an OTS pack 2 packs ago.
Absolute Zero does not have a printing under $15 or $10.
Okay, that is cringe. You'd think they would reprint it at some point in a set with some hero cards, but I guess not.
You would think. All right. Well, I do want to give a praise to Konami though for making the game overall very playable, even on a budget. I say this every year around the time of the Megatins, and then by January we're going to be complaining about prices on cards again, and I know that, but if you're getting into the paper card game, there is no better time than Megatin season, because a year from now, half of these Megatin cards, like if Fenrir doesn't get hit on this ban list, the Megatin secrets on Fenrir are going to be $15.
Yeah. I would say
smart.
Look at the Megatins now. For example, we're not financial advisors. I will probably be picking up my copies of Illusion of Chaos while they're very cheap.
Yes.
The Therian engine, while it's cheap, is definitely worth thinking about. If you are somebody who likes to have options, then especially when the rarity collection drops, I would be looking to pick up some staples. Because not only are the cards that are in the rarity collection, those prints will be cheaper, the other printings of the cards will go down. So if there's a specific version of something you've been keeping an eye on, that would be the time to make your choices.
I think, though, that if you want to have any indication as to how these things are going to go, also, I would pick up the Adventure Engine. The Adventure Engine's criminally cheap. If you want any indication on how this is going to go, last year, Lightning Storms out of the tins were like $5-6. Now they're $8. Ash Blossoms were $3. Now they're $7. Small Worlds were $3. Now they're $5. Nibiru's were $5, now they're $4. Some stuff goes down, some stuff goes up.
Well, Nibiru had
a lot of times
Nibiru had an additional reprint. So it depends on when they get reprints, right? Like Storm also had Maidens.
Yeah, I think the point that I was trying to make was that a lot of times these things get more expensive, but I guess a lot of the value is specifically in last year's tins was so caught up in the staples that they reprinted in the tins because there was nothing else to print there except for Prosperity. So I guess, in a sense, it's like, oh, okay, well, so many of the staples took up so much value in those tins, but this year you don't really have that as much. So if you want your engine, get it now because they won't be cheap forever. So
that seems like a good place to wrap it up with some sage advice.
So with that said, of course, let's give a huge shout out to all of our wonderful patrons. And again, you can get this for as low as $1 a month. A huge thank you to Bring Red Reboot Back to 3, Kane Martin, Zyphers, Big Stinky, Blue Eyes' Best, Copium, Ding Dong's hostess of the Yang Zing, Free My Home Gazelle, he said he's sorry, Gold Secrets coming back when, Konami got my ash beat by Crossout Designator, HGH Cyber, I used to play Rogue, but then my mom got a job, Is Canada, Nickelback, John Leo, Level 4 Fire Warrior Gaming, Mountain Man, Oatmeal Spaghetti, Owen Alvarado, Pistol Place Pendulums, Silver Hope, Understanding and Reading are two different things, Virtually Savior's World, as anyone Red Toy Vendor, it's kind of like reading Miss Cars, Aaron Gardner, Alexander Chanasami, Ashless Chaps, Etsuyo, Snip at the Silver Castle, Blackwing Silver in the Senate, it's the best floodgate, Box Wine, come on and get your game on, Duty Booty, Dragon Maidenless Behavior, I'm about to Rika Glamour tribute for Crosty's plant nuts in your mouth, Lama Yama Cam Sarama.
That is... Cam is...
Listen,
that is beautiful.
As a...
Meta-relevant.
As someone with a 6-year-old who has read Llama Llama Red Pajama more times than I can count, that's really funny.
That's well done.
Max C. Pack, Neshi, Old Man Red, Pinko 143, and Slaking It Up. Thank you all so much for your continued support of the podcast. And of course, until next time, have a great weekend, everyone.
I'm going to click and echo what Sunny said. Until next time, have a great weekend, everyone. I thought that was good.
That was a really good one.